We used to believe that freedom was something guaranteed, written on paper, protected by laws, promised by those in power. But lately, it feels like that promise has been rewritten in invisible ink. A few months ago, we talked about the death of the American dream. That video was about how an idea, once built on ownership, opportunity, and hope, got buried under debt, inflation, and control. But what happens after the dream dies? What happens when you wake up inside the system that replaced it? That's what this story is about. Because we're living in a world where freedom hasn't disappeared, it's just been redesigned, repackaged, turned into a product. We rent it by the hour, we stream it through screens, and we trade pieces of it every time we click accept. Freedom today isn't taken by force. It's traded willingly for comfort, convenience, or the illusion of safety. And somehow, the more connected we've become, the more controlled we feel. So, the real question isn't how we lost freedom, it's how to rebuild it, in a world that's been engineered to keep us tame. Every generation believes their moment in history is unique. But some truths never change. When fear rises, control follows. When people feel uncertain, they look for someone to tell them what to do. And that's how freedom quietly dies, not in chaos, but in compliance. Stefan Zweig once wrote that in times when peace, independence, and dignity are sacrificed to the madness of ideologues, every man faces the same question: how to remain free. He lived through the rise of totalitarianism. He saw how fear can make good people obedient. And today, that same pattern has just been digitized. We don't live in the age of chains and cages. We live in what some call turnkey tyrannies. The locks are invisible now. They're made of data, algorithms, and dependency. We used to fight for land, now we fight for attention. And while we scroll, the walls move closer. Governments, corporations, and platforms promise safety, fairness, or connection. But the price is always the same: your autonomy. When you let fear guide your choices, you don't need a dictator to control you. You'll do it yourself. That's why every crisis is dangerous. Not just because of what it destroys, but because of what it justifies. In 2001, fear gave birth to surveillance. In 2020, it gave birth to obedience. And every temporary restriction has a way of sticking around. The world is now designed for emergencies. Permanent emergencies. And as long as you keep people scared enough, you can sell them control as comfort. But here's the paradox. The more we let others protect us, the weaker we become. Carl Jung saw it coming long before technology. The increasing dependence on the state, he said, is anything but healthy. It turns the nation into a herd of sheep, relying on a shepherd who soon becomes a wolf. He was right. Every time we outsource responsibility to governments, algorithms, or experts, we lose a piece of ourselves. Because freedom isn't something granted by permission. It's something built from within. You can strip away a man's job, his privacy, even his movement. But no one, not even the most powerful, can take away his mind unless he surrenders it. That's what the stoic philosopher Epictetus meant when he said, "You may fetter my leg, but my will, not even Zeus himself can overpower." Real freedom begins there, in the recognition that your thoughts, your values, and your will are yours to command. This is what psychologists call psychological freedom, the ability to think and choose for yourself, no matter how oppressive the world becomes. It's the bridge between slavery and sovereignty, between being controlled and being conscious. But there's a deeper kind of freedom too, one that even autonomy can't fully describe. The Indian philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti called it freedom from the known. He said that most of what we call reality, our beliefs, our ideas, our religions, our ideologies, are just the products of thought. And thought, by its very nature, is limited. You can't find truth through something that's built on memory, comparison, and past experience. So as long as we live inside thought, we live inside walls. Krishnamurti said that to be free, we have to go beyond thought. Not by suppressing it, but by seeing it clearly. To understand how thought shapes our fears, our desires, our politics. And once you see that mechanism, really see it, something changes. You stop reacting. You stop obeying the noise. You stop being part of the machine. Because the truth is, no one can control a mind that has learned to watch itself. We've mistaken order for control. We think that following rules brings peace. But real order, as Krishnamurti said, can only exist when you see the disorder within yourself. Not when you force it into submission, but when you observe it without judgment. And that's the hardest thing to do in a controlled world. To think freely without immediately trying to fix, optimize, or brand it. We live in an age where even our inner lives are monetized. Meditation apps tell us how to breathe. Influencers tell us how to be ourselves. And somewhere between self-improvement and self-surveillance, the idea of being free got lost. So where do we start rebuilding it? Maybe by remembering something simple, that autonomy isn't rebellion, it's responsibility. Freedom doesn't mean doing whatever we want. It means choosing what's right, even when it's hard. Frank Furedi called this moral autonomy, the ability to live by your own values, not by what's trending or enforced. He said autonomy is how we grow, how we become conscious, responsible beings. It's the act of taking charge of your own mind. And it's not just personal. Every time one person chooses autonomy over comfort, freedom grows a little stronger for everyone. But here's the truth. The modern world isn't designed to make you free. It's designed to keep you distracted, entertained, and dependent. We live in a digital panopticon, a world where everything is watched, logged, and optimized for profit. Every click, every search, every purchase tells a story about who you are. And then that story is sold back to you as personalization. The more data they have, the more predictable you become. And the more predictable you are, the easier you are to control. The philosopher Butler Schaffer once wrote, "You and I can't bring civilization back into order by seizing power, but by diverting our focus from politics to the conduct of our daily lives." That's how freedom begins. Quietly, individually, beneath the noise. The systems we live under are too big to fight head-on. But you don't have to fight them. You just have to stop feeding them. Stop feeding the fear. Stop feeding the outrage. Stop feeding the illusion that freedom can be downloaded, voted for, or handed down. Freedom is built in silence. In the decision to stay aware when everyone else is asleep. In the courage to live truthfully, even when it costs you comfort. The Russian writer, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, called totalitarianism the land of smothered opportunities. But he also showed that even in that land, one person's integrity can light a fire. And that's what this moment demands. Not revolution, not chaos, but awareness. Because control only works when we participate. When we believe that obedience equals safety, or that comfort equals happiness. But the truth is, we're not safe, and that's okay. Uncertainty is the price of freedom. The world has never been secure. It's just that now, the illusion is more sophisticated. It's managed by AI instead of armies, enforced by dopamine instead of fear. But the goal is the same. Keep you compliant enough not to notice. So how do we escape a system that exists everywhere, even inside our thoughts? We start by realizing that the system isn't out there, it's in here. In our habits, our attachments, our automatic reactions. And the only way out is through awareness. Krishnamurti called this the art of seeing. He said true learning isn't accumulation, it's observation. When you see something clearly, without naming it, comparing it, or judging it, it loses its power over you. That's what real meditation is. Not closing your eyes to escape the world, but opening them to see the world as it is, without filters. If you really look without fear, you begin to notice how thought tries to control everything. It compares, measures, plans, resists. It's always moving towards something, and in that movement, there's time. And time, he said, is the essence of psychological slavery. We live between what was and what should be, between memory and desire. And as long as we live there, we're never free, because we're never here. But when that movement of thought stops, even for a moment, something sacred appears. Something beyond the noise, beyond the conditioning. And that's where real freedom lives. Not in the slogans, not in the protests, not in the systems, but in stillness. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you've stopped reacting to the machine. When you no longer chase the next distraction, the next argument, the next validation, you become unpredictable. And nothing scares a controlled system more than people it can't predict. That's why real freedom always begins as an internal revolution. Before it changes the world, it changes you. It's the moment you stop saying they and start saying I. The moment you realize that resistance isn't about fighting the system, it's about refusing to become it. Nietzsche once wrote, "Nobody can build the bridge for you to cross the river of life, only you yourself." You can follow countless paths, countless ideologies, countless leaders, but every one of them will demand the same price, yourself. And once you give that up, it doesn't matter how safe or prosperous you are, you're no longer free. That's why freedom and self-creation are the same thing. To be free is to build yourself, to discover who you are without permission. And in a world that rewards conformity, that's the most radical act of all. Most people don't need to be forced to obey. They just need to be kept busy enough not to question. That's how modern control works. It's soft, polite, invisible, and it's everywhere. It's in the way we're told what success looks like, in the way we compete for attention instead of understanding, in the way we mistake noise for meaning. But once you start seeing it, once you recognize the pattern, something changes. You begin to see that all these systems only function because we believe in them, because we feed them with our time, our clicks, our fear. And if enough of us stop believing, stop obeying, stop feeding the machine, it collapses under its own weight. Freedom doesn't require a majority. It just needs a tipping point, a small minority of awake individuals who refuse to live asleep. Jung said that the essential thing is the life of the individual. Here alone do great transformations take place. He meant that real change never starts in governments or institutions. It starts inside one mind at a time. If you want to change the world, stop waiting for permission. Start living differently. Start thinking differently. Start being free right where you are. Because freedom isn't a destination. It's a decision you make every day. To think, to question, to act with integrity when it would be easier not to. We can't rebuild freedom by fighting the system that destroyed it, because fighting is still a form of dependence. We rebuild it by living in truth, regardless of the cost. By saying no to the things that steal our awareness. By choosing meaning over convenience. By refusing to trade our conscience for comfort. That's how freedom begins, not with revolution, but with realization. And if enough of us do that, quietly, consistently, the balance of the world shifts. Because every time one person wakes up, the illusion loses power. Maybe the real task of our time isn't to overthrow tyranny, but to outgrow it. To become the kind of people who can't be ruled, because they don't seek rulers. Who can't be manipulated, because they see clearly. Who can't be enslaved, because they own themselves. That's what it means to build freedom in a controlled world. It's not about escaping the system, it's about transcending it. When you reclaim your mind, your choices, and your moral autonomy, the world starts to change around you. And maybe that's what Stefan Zweig meant when he said, "Only he who endures doubt and despair within himself can stand firm amidst the world's pandemonium." So if you're still watching, maybe that means something in you hasn't given up yet. Maybe you still believe that freedom, real freedom, is worth building again. And if that's true, then it starts here. Not tomorrow, not when the world changes, but right now, in you. Because in the end, no one can set you free. You have to do it yourself. Watch the next video and see how the people who understand where the money's moving next always win. And if you're serious about staying ahead of that shift, hit subscribe. You'll want to see what's coming next.